Welcome back to Next Level Rides. In today's episode, we're doing the final touches on my 540. Now, in the previous episodes, if you haven't seen them, what we ended up doing is a bunch of small mods that make it look significantly better and a bunch of bigger mods that do increase the performance. For today, what we're going to be doing is changing out the rear diffuser to an M5 competition style, and for the suspension, we're going to be lowering it. Nothing too crazy, but we're going to be lowering it on H&R springs with just the factory M Performance or M Sport shocks. First things first, what we need to do is we need to open up this one and just make sure that I ordered the right one to begin with. Well, the packing slip says it is an auto part with a declared value of $25, even though I paid 200 Canadian pesos. These are typically like a gel black or a gloss black, so I want to limit how much I touch it because they tend to scratch pretty easily. Ooh, that looks good. Comparing to the factory one, you can see where the reflector is horizontal here. This one's going to be vertical, just like on the M5 competition, and it does have this, I guess, veins or whatever we're going to call them. Are they going to be functional? No, probably not. Are they going to do anything? Nope. But it looks a heck of a lot better. You can see the quality overall is actually quite nice. Whenever you change the rear diffuser, especially to an M5 style, you're going to need something like this. I'm sure some of you are going to guess what they are, but we needed some new exhaust tips to fill the new valence. The factory G30 style is more of like a micro HDMI or USB type design, whereas the M5 competition, if you've seen them, they typically have, I think it's dual 3-inch exhaust tips. So I'm going to open this up and show you what we got. I'm hoping I got the right size. We can see that they're an offset or staggered dual exhaust tip. They're dual walled and offset. I'm thinking these are going to look pretty good in this thing. Yeah, I think that's going to be a heck of a lot better. Yeah, we're going to have to see exactly when we're at the exhaust shop how we want it, but I think we're going to aim for something roughly like that. For now, I'm going to wrap these back up. After we get the diffuser installed, we do have an appointment at a friend's shop to weld on the exhaust tips. Now, there's going to be a little bit of piping that needs to be modified for them to fit appropriately. So after I get the diffuser on, don't be surprised if we cut to a take of it being on a lift and these being welded on. But I'm going to go over the diffuser, or again, the valence, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to show you really quick how we end up taking that off, and it's going to be a pretty simple, straightforward thing. All right. It's a little bit dark in here, but you'll see there's going to be a lot of these 8mm bolts. So you're going to see there's one there, we'll spin around here, two there, all in a cross. It looks like this is a bit of a filler piece. All in all, this will probably end up being one of the easier installs. I'm not going to show you exactly how to take an 8mm bolt out. I think the majority of you will know how to do that by now. And if you don't, just get an 8mm wrench or ratchet and just turn them out. After chewing your archaeology homework, we're going to line this one up, and should be as simple as just pop them in. Taking a quick look, it's not so bad, but you can see that the exhaust tips don't really fit in too well. The little spats or slats or whatever don't look so bad. My only gripe is that this red is now going to be a lot brighter than this red, so I'll likely need to tint those, but overall, not bad. Now that the exhaust is done, we're moving on to step 2, which is arguably the most difficult part of this final step, or whatever we're gonna call it for the 540. We have the H&R springs here. We purchased these from Park Auto, paid retail, had them for over a year. Finally get some time to actually install them and do some work on my own car, which is kind of strange. Now the 540 itself, it's more of just a daily for me. So for the most part, the suspension is perfectly fine, but what I would like to do is lower it just a hair and stiffen up the suspension just a bit, get it a little bit poor man's M5-esque, we'll say. So what that's going to entail is a fair bit more work. We're not doing coilovers on this one like we have on others. What we're going to have to do is actually pull the struts out, compress the springs, swap the springs over, re-put the top hats, and reinstall them. So there's going to be a fair bit of work. For the front, my understanding is right up top it ends up having a wishbone, and then the strut goes through it, and it has a fork style strut right at the bottom that goes over top the axles. So the biggest thing is we're going to have to take off the plastic sides for either side because it's holding or hiding a couple of the bolts. We're going to loosen those 3 bolts off and then jack up the car and start by taking off the wheel. It does sound like this is going to be a bit of a pain, at least for the backs or the rears. Some people do say that the fronts are more complicated, but realistically, nobody's ever touched the car, let alone the bolts. So I'm hoping, knock on wood, that it goes relatively straightforward, and crossing my fingers and praying to whoever I have to pray to, but worst case, I guess I'll have to deal with it. I'm going to start off by saying that this is definitely not going to be a tutorial, and it's not going to be a walkthrough. I ended up spending the majority of 2, probably 3 days trying to fight with this thing. The lowering springs weren't easy, and it was probably one of the worst ones that I've had to do in some time now. All you end up having is a bunch of steel bolts, or the steel on the ball joints, into aluminum fasteners and into aluminum brackets. All that does is attract a bunch of grit, corrosion, and every single bolt that I had to deal with on this suspension swap was stuck. It really took my patience and a lot of tools that I never thought I would need to end up using to get this thing done. But in the end, we persevered, even though it was a huge pain in the backside. Would I ever do this again? Absolutely not. It took way too much time. Apparently you just need to yell, "That's my purse!" I don't know you!
What are we on, quarter 1?
Yep. Shut up, Taylor. I don't want to hear it. If you thought the fronts were hard and that the rears were going to be easier, boy, would you have been mistaken. We started off by taking the seat bracket down and getting access to these little clips. Now, when you end up getting to the clips, you're going to realize that there's going to be a bunch of bolts that are hidden. So essentially blind bolts in the trunk that you need to access, or you need to just guess where they are. And then eventually you'll be able to slide the deck lid forward and out of all of its 14,000 hooks, it felt like. One thing also to keep in mind is that you're going to need to disconnect the battery. So yeah, since you're playing around with the seat belts, you definitely want those to be disconnected, and you don't want it to have any power to them because they can lock in place. Ironically, and foreshadowing, yeah, that's what happened to us. After you continue to remove the seat belts, you realize that they retract, but they don't come back. But that wasn't even the worst of it. When you move the deck lid, you're going to have to remove the peasant blockers, and you have to dig underneath this foam. All because the bolts that access the top of the strut mount are dug way up in there and in behind the tray. Otherwise, it was all right, but yeah, it was a pretty lousy job. When I go to reinstall the shock, it felt like you were chucking it down a hallway. and it can only go in one way because the 3 bolts up top, they're not evenly spaced out. So what you had to do, even though I tried and thought I could do it, you have to take the inner fender shroud out, which is again a million more bolts just so you can actually line it up properly to put it inside and then get the nuts on top. Along with spending way too many hours on this because everything was seized, we encountered a problem that a lot of other people never mentioned or never had. The seatbelt itself continues to retract back into the spool, so when you loosen them off, when you hang them down to get to the upper strut mount bolts, it'll constrict, but you can't pull it out. So what I have here is just a hose clamp off, so I don't end up losing too much of it. And what we're gonna have to do is manually release it. So up top here has 3 little push rivets or plastic rivets. So there's one here, there's one over here, and one over here. So what you need to do is from the back side, slowly push out the rivets and you'll be able to take this cap off. When you get to the ball bearing, you're gonna see there's the teeth here. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna push it so that it's no longer riding on the gear and then pull it out. We're going to confirm exactly how I need to mount it. So remember from the deck, it's going to be flat. Now what I've done is I've pulled however much seatbelt I've needed through here. So you give yourself a little bit of slack and then just put a clamp right on the belt itself. So right there, this isn't going to hurt the belt at all. This is for hose crimp offs and they're not very tight. So here, hold it with your thumb as you put this one back in, and then you're going to put the big Torx one in and the 2 10 mils. What we're going to do now is we're going to reattach the deck, but we're going to fight with some of the clips because they came off or they broke. So we're going to chuck that back together, go from there. Last but not least, to wrap up what I consider the perfect build for my 540 is a set of 20-inch Braelin BR14 wheels. The fronts are going to be at 20x9 and the rears are going to be at 20x10, both with an ET35 offset. Now bear in mind that the fronts, you're going to need a 15 mil spacer, and I did end up having one, so that allowed me to have them flush as can be and look a lot better. One thing to keep in mind is not only are these a flow formed wheel, but you are going to lose a significant weight per corner of unsprung rotational mass. What that results to is a car that's more responsive and does end up having a lighter, more nimble feel. Shout out to Marcel for helping me throw the tires onto the wheels. I can't wait to see what these are going to look like on the car. You guys ready to see what it looks like? This is how it turned out. As you can see, we ended up doing the wheels, we lowered it, gave it the final touches that it needed, and we did the rear diffuser. I may black out the exhaust tips, but we'll see. To me, this is the perfect 540 build, without a doubt. As soon as I got it, I had a vision, and this is the final product, and I'm extremely happy that it turned out as well as it did. Do you think maybe I could add something? Would you change something, do something a little bit different? Let me know down in the comments. As always, feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Why is there a fucking drip? Stop getting dirty, lens.